Hello, Dan.
Hello, David.
Yes, sir. This should be podcast episode 48. Coming
Yep.
at you at 9:33 p.m. on Tuesday, May 31st.
2022.
Yes, right. Let's not get the year wrong because
Greetings, people of the future listening to this
Yeah,
in the
2070s.
2070s. You'll either refer to this as the good old days when we didn't realize how good we had it, or the bad old days, the dark ages, before and real enlightenment happened.
Yeah, the before times. Ooh.
In the before times. Man, I just made Levi watch Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome the other day.
Nice.
And I all he knew about it was the Thunderdome part.
Right.
And so about halfway through, that movie just goes in a whole right turn. He's like, where did all these kids come from? What's going on?
There's a plane? What? I don't...
And they talk in these weird little limericks. Yeah.
It is an odd film, but hey, I'm glad. I'm sure you enjoyed it. Come on. It seems like it's right up his alley.
Yeah. No, I mean, the campiness is part of the charm.
Exactly. On that note, we begin. Okay.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like there's a Simpsons episode where I forget Wise is involved, but Homer gets confronted about the Moody Blues. It's just like, the Moody Blues,
The band.
yeah, and they're like, poor Homer and his something. While Ancient Ned gets it, it's like they start talking to these like poetic, lyrically kind of stupid things. And he's just like, the Moody Blues.
Yeah.
Not
Or that
not
part
quite
in,
the same as
what's that?
Limerick, but, yeah.
What's the one about the dragons? Reign of Fire, where Christian Bale is telling the story of Star Wars and they're having to act it out to the kids.
I think I've seen that movie one time.
It's surprisingly underrated. It holds up.
All right. Yeah, I didn't hate it. I just, saw it one time.
Yeah.
All right.
So speaking of lawless wastelands,
Yeah. What a time to be alive. Go, Lawless Wasteland. Lay it on me. What do you thinking?
well, there's a lot to unpack here. I mean, that we could. Which depressing topic would you? I mean, you
Well,
could.
I think the thing we were chatting about quickly, and then this can go into like 1,000 angles. I'm sure the whole police down in Texas thing.
Yeah.
hanging around for like an hour to get into the building.
Yeah,
when,
that's
this guy.
if that's even half true. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, is it possible? I try to. I don't like to believe that there's that many dickless cowards,
Right.
like collecting paychecks from the taxpayers. That. So it also, I guess there's a possibility that it's been way overblown by the media, who are known to lie about things. But I don't know. I mean, it seems pretty credible, a lot of the accounts. I read an interview with one dude who was like, we were there, we were all arguing. It was getting pretty heated. We were using some curse words, talking to each other. And there was like, but they didn't have, we felt like we're cowards and I really wished we could have done something. It's like, and I'm reading this article, like this guy has no self-awareness at all. Because it's like, you could have. Like, yeah, you would have had to, I mean, it's not like was the police captain like physically restraining these guys or like, pointing his gun at them saying don't go in?
Right, that I don't know. I feel like it's a pretty agreed upon narrative now. So like
and an off-duty border patrol is the one that had to break into the school and finally take the guy out.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he did. Yeah, right. Yeah, there's actually 2 off-duty guys I think that went in there, and I think one of those guys is the one that killed him. But either way. Yeah, man, it's insane. Like even half true, like you said, but it's totally true. I mean, there's no if it's not true, it's like one of those rare exceptions where like the media on the left, the media on the right, all agree on something that happened, and they're like, "Wow, that's." I mean, and that's I guess crazier things could have happened, but
Yeah.
it seems like a pretty legit story that these dudes were I mean, just they just didn't go in there. They just didn't do it, waiting for something, and bunch of kids getting killed in a room was one of those things that got them going. So
yeah, right, because it's like, so somebody said that, like, well, they think that maybe some of the cops were under the impression that the guy had barricaded himself into a room alone. But it's like, if he's alone, the number of guys who will shoot at you when you go in there is the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
it
like,
make any sense.
You're still going to go in there and get him. If anything, it's like, how did they not know? Like, how are they, like, because they're in the building, right? They're like in the hallway.
Yeah, like who's they? Like the police?
The cops, right? Like there was, I don't know sure the exact timeline, whether they were outside the building and then they get in the building. Right.
Yeah, they were inside at one point, and then they got shot out, and a couple of them left. I mean, and then in terms of trying to engage with the shooter, yes.
Yeah, but at some point they were in the building, hearing shots happen. So what did they think? They think that the shooter was shooting at walls. I mean, he was clearly shooting at someone. Right. Why else would he be shooting? So I feel like at that point, and you're like, who's the likely inhabitants of this building that are going to get children? It's like
children. Yes.
I mean.
Yeah, dude,
they should all be fired.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's not even a question. Like
at the whole least, thing is, I mean, maybe not.
The whole thing is wonky, man. Like the dude crashed his car outside of the school grounds and walked onto the school grounds with a gun, like shooting indiscriminately at stuff as he's walking into the school.
Yeah, he shot at some passerbys, right?
Yeah, something like that. And that was like 10 or 12 minutes before he got in there. And then however long it took the cops.
Didn't he get in through like a back door that was propped open?
I think so, something like that. Yeah. How? Yeah. It's a colossal clusterfuck all the way around, like outside of an insane human being going in and murdering kids. But yeah, like how there's not good security at the school, how the cops didn't do what they're supposed to do. Yeah, and then, like this is a common thing though, because like that didn't happen like in Parkland. It took them forever to get into the school. And there was a big hubbub about it after, and like the courts have ruled that cops are under no obligation to actually go in and put their lives on the line for you. So they probably won't. I wouldn't think anything legally will happen to these people. They might lose their jobs, but it's not like, I mean, like we said, like,
they're going to get ostracized from the community.
Oh yeah, no, don't get me wrong there.
I mean, they're not going to be walking a beat in Uvalde, walking down the street. People be spitting on them and stuff. I mean, shoot.
Yeah. I'm going over to El Paso now. Dang. Yeah. No. Right. I don't know, man. It's unbelievable how just, I guess, cowardly, I'll use that term, or just inept, or I don't know, whatever, dude.
I prefer the term dickless, but yeah.
Dickless is fine. Yeah. Dickless is great. Yeah,
it's true. Like this man has no dick.
It's true.
When was that, Ghostbusters?
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick. They were waiting on like a shield or something to get in there, and like everyone was just like, okay, so that was you just waited. They're like, the kids inside didn't have shields, man. I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
And there was like parents outside yelling.
Oh, isn't that insane? Like, yeah, I think because like
if I was there, oh gosh, I could be sitting out there. Like, you're not gonna do something like, well, hand me a gun, I'll do something. I don't know shit, but at least somebody should try.
Yeah, right, exactly. It wasn't like the cops are in there engaging with the guy, and they're like, no, don't come in here. We got like something going on. We got a plan. We're like surrounding. We're like,
it's not like he took hostages either. You know what I mean? Exactly. We're trying to negotiate. All right, give us the women and children, like out of a bank or something. No, he's in there just blasting. I mean,
yeah, man. Like one of the ladies, I mean, for some reason they handcuffed her and then unhandcuffed her, and like she wasn't arrested or anything. They just subdued her, and like she eventually went inside and got her kids out. I don't know if that's true, but that's like those are reported stories. So that's the stuff that I'd be weary about. All these little ancillary side stories, but
yeah, I mean, no story is simple. There's always angles and stuff.
Yeah, it's freaking nuts though. But like, it's bonkers to me that in this situation that they didn't do anything, obviously. But like, and I think it's going to come out that they didn't have to, and they're not going to be, legally liable for any of it, which is pretty disgusting. I think the department's already stopped like cooperating with the Texas Department of whatever investigate, like their bureau, their FBI or whatever investigation bureau they have. So I'm pretty sure their lawyers have told them to be like, you know what, it's time to stop talking, and we're just gonna clam up here.
Everybody call your union rep.
Yep, all that bullshit that goes down. Oof. So, yeah,
I'm just surprised that it was
I'm
a
glad
whole
there's a universal outrage, though. No, so, what do you mean? Say again.
Well, no, but universal. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like when Russia invaded Ukraine. It's like everybody agreed who the bad guys were for about 5 minutes
Right.
before it got
Yeah,
politicized. But I'm just surprised. Like, how many cops were there? Like, there wasn't one, John McClane in the group. I mean,
I mean, apparently there was one or two. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a handful of cops. I mean, I don't think
like
it
the
was
idea that they
it
were
wasn't just
all there
3
and
dudes.
none of them were able to do anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many cops were there. Good question. I'm trying to find out. So
I mean,
I get angry about that.
Say what?
So let's go find out how many cops are there. So now I can be really angry.
Yeah, that's what we need. More things to get angry about. But it brings up a larger question. Like,
There was as many as 19 officers there.
all right. So it's like a
So-
1-to-1 ratio, officers and children killed.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
how does that make them feel? Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. Right. Okay.
It's like with all of these, anytime there's an event that happens, like the idea of causality and like guilt and like maybe not guilt, but like culpability. Like everybody seems
Yeah.
to have everybody's brain processes it differently. You know what I mean? We saw this with coronavirus. You know what I mean? Like people felt like nobody wanted to take responsibility, And so it was like, is it the Chinese? Is it their fault? Like, are they there because they're the ones running the lab, But it's not a Chinese person's fault. You know what I mean? So, but because we didn't want to be criticizing a Chinese person because they're just a regular person, but that also meant that we weren't able to say true facts about the fact that it was the Chinese government in cahoots with the NIH and all these people.
The NIH. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
So, but then
Yeah.
it's like we can't talk about that. But it's like, but it's my fault if I don't wear a mask at the convenience store. You're killing grandma. Like
Well,
that's a weirdly
that's exactly where it landed. Yeah.
oddly misplaced level of culpability. Like we didn't make this happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, for that matter, did Andrew Cuomo murder people by sending old people into the, you know what I mean? Like there's a proximal cause to every
Right.
reaction. I don't think Andrew Cuomo was like, yeah, let him die. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't think,
I agree.
I don't think he's that bad. He's not a great person, but he's not that bad. Right.
He's not an arch supervillain. Not yet.
But you can't call Ron DeSantis. You need to call him Death Santis and all this stuff because he didn't want
Yeah.
to close a bunch of stuff. That's ridiculous, Or they're saying that Trump didn't close stuff down early on, so it's on your hands, Donald. And it's just like it's people have this weird, I think, misunderstanding of how complicated causality and intentionality are. Like
I'll grant you that.
it's
But
just these coward cops. They didn't kill those kids.
no, they did not.
Proximally, they did, but.
But they could have lessened it. They could have stopped.
It's an of course, but maybe kind of thing. Of course, it's the shooter's fault. But maybe if you're standing there listening to kids get killed, it's a little bit your fault.
Well, yeah, and especially when it's your job to be in that situation. You're the ones who legally have the guns and the authorization to kill people for doing things that are evil. Like you're that person.
The government
that's
has the official monopoly on violence.
They are
and
the
then
ones
when
that
it
are
comes time for
supposed
them
to
to
do it.
use violence, they choose not to.
Right. It's very true that police departments across the country didn't burn inner cities down, but they stood aside and let people burn inner cities down throughout all of 2020 and 2021 during the riot season. Like the freaking Raleigh police chief came out and they said, to be clear, if shit goes down in the next couple of weeks, we will not be out here stopping people from doing what they do. Like we'll come out later, we'll assess and clean shit up, but we're not putting our officers in the line of fire there. So yeah, no, screw the police. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
It's like weird. It's a screw the police from a different direction that other people say screw the police. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Again,
In
just
either
saying,
case, there's an immense responsibility when you're a public servant charged with safety of the public.
yeah, no kidding.
Maybe you should be
that is your
more.
gig.
Maybe you should be more careful when you start stepping on people and causing national, international outrage. Like,
Hey, yeah, maybe it's an unreasonable position to be put in that department and that 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 sector of our government should
without
be
proper
like,
without proper training and psychological counseling and all sorts
well,
of things.
yeah.
That,
Well, no, God, like the memes are, you know, legion. Just like, yep, cops busted in for $300 worth of weed. There's 19 cops breaking into one house for that in the heartbeat, but you can't get a bunch of, you can't get them to get into a freaking school shooting scenario. So it was just like, I don't know, misplaced priorities and misplaced aggression in a lot of ways. And I mean, obviously everyone sees it as a failure. So I mean, I don't.
Well, and it's almost like when you have something so bad, assigning blame to one person doesn't feel like it's enough.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's not simple enough to say that the name of this horrible person. It's like that they acted alone and they're disturbed and that switch flips, that from benevolence to malevolence. And like, oh, and that person's dead now. Right. It's like, oh, there's no satisfaction there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't get the pleasure of seeing somebody even like arrested or carried off in handcuffs and embarrassed. For you know what I mean? Like, so I could see how you're like, well, that doesn't give me any sort of peace at all. So, okay. Ooh, what if I blamed 50 million inhabitants of this country who voted differently than me? All right. Well, that's sure. Now we're talking.
Yeah. I agree. That is a instinct that everyone's going to have. Yeah. But it's whatever. And then like you think about it, like the school was unlocked. It's like, how crazy is that? Like every school in this country has locks now, and like the little security thing where you have to buzz in. Like literally every school.
And I don't know anybody who complains about. I mean, it's if I got to drop my daughter's backpack off, I'm like, all right, I hit the button. I go, hey, this is for her, and they go, okay, you know what I mean? At that basic level,
right? And then like you're in the front of the building. Like conceivably, you could still do some crazy shit, but like you're at the front of the building at least, and they know where you're at. You know what I mean? It's just like. It's like if you don't wear your seatbelt and then somebody else downs a fifth of Jack and crashes into your car and you fly out the window, right? You go like, well, if you've been wearing your seatbelt, you'd have survived. Like, yeah, okay, it's still that guy's fault for being blasted and driving, but still be wearing your seatbelt. Yes,
I think that's where people get a little confused because everybody immediately starts arguing. Yeah, some people want to say, well, if we got rid of the guns, or something, well, if we armed the teachers, and all these things that,
right.
Yeah, that's a very frustrating conversation.
Yeah, the approximate blame for the handling of the situation is there for sure. School administrators, the police department, whatever else would have failed. Or
well, I mean, he passed a background check. Yeah. So who's running those background checks?
Yeah, I know. Like how don't know. Yeah, isn't that so funny? Because everyone's just like, "Yep, we need more stringent background checks." Like, what else do you want to do? Like. He has no criminal record. He had no psychological red flags on the books. So like
that's a really interesting topic because I think
what could you do?
People have been talking about that. I mean, like it's like, well, we need like somebody brought up the point the other day. I forget who it was. It was like during the pandemic, the Child Protective Services were like, we heard that you were telling your kid not to get vaccinated, so they swarmed to the house. It's like, all right, so some kid mentions that they don't really want to get vaccinated. Like, my dad says the vaccine doesn't really help that much for kids, and they swarm, right? But if you got some person who's like bragging about their gun collection and they're wearing all black and they're looking all gothy and they're not having any friends, nobody notices that and thinks, wait a minute,
Yeah, right, yeah. Ooh, red, yeah, literally red flag. So like the red flag law thing, I'm not in support of that, but like the idea
I mean, it's like that's an immediate like. Let's think of the 1,000 ways this could be abused.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the general principle of, hey, something's going down here. It's like the terrorism thing. Like, if you see something, say something. You know what I mean? Like that whole mantra we had after like 9/11 and stuff. Not that anyone ever went, I see a terrorist, and like that's stopped anything. But I mean,
it's possible. We don't know.
Maybe so.
Think about how many. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. Not to interrupt your point, but like,
no, okay.
I wonder how many kids are in juvie right now that would have been mass shooters that got picked up for, having some weed or punching somebody at school or doing something, right? We'll never know the ones that were prevented.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I don't know, man. Just right. I saw other stuff with background checks. Like, well, maybe like some kind of social media combing apparatus thing. I'm just like, oh my god, are you serious though? Like, I get that. Like if there's like a red flag or an algorithm that could pick up some disturbing behavior, but like just who defines that behavior and who defines the we're uncomfortable with this and now we need to get investigated and you said something and
right.
Like, where does that cross like your freedom of speech versus your freedom to, you know.
Right. I mean, the idea of people keeping the lookout for these disturbed individuals, that sounds great.
Yeah,
for about 15 seconds until you start thinking about, oh, wait a minute, so who's in charge of this? A governmental organization? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, how long is that going to last between, a whole church gets reported because they said something about Jesus and they're white supremacists or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Especially with this administration. I mean, come on.
Yeah. No.
Anybody wearing a red hat? I mean,
no, it'd be like, okay, do you want Donald Trump coming through you're going through your social media and like you're on the left? Like, yeah, no, Donald Trump's in charge of your defense, you know what I mean, or your self-defense, or your ability to, you know, just stay out of jail, or or not be investigated or harassed by the police and the feds. It's sketchy, man. It's like one of those things that it's gonna be frustrating for people. As they're gonna go, well, nothing changed, nothing happened. Like nobody did do something. You know, we gotta do something. There's
just do something. Yeah.
What do you do though? That's the stupidest. That's the stupidest. I get the impulse, but it's a childish impulse. I mean, it can't just be do something. You have to do something. You have to do
right.
What
it's the governmental policy of some, or like you're sitting there, your computer doesn't work. You're very frustrated, so you just start smashing.
Yeah,
like technically you're doing something, and it probably feels good to release that energy, but you're not. You're blunt force on a very nuanced problem. You smashing your computer isn't going to make Windows updates go faster.
This is true. As much as I'd like it to go that way. But.
Right. Because I mean, right. I mean, like, I think we've talked about it before. Like if guns were the deciding factor between not mass shooting and mass shooting, then why aren't they happening all the time?
Right.
Right. Because people will love the point. I mean, I'm not some gun nut. I don't own any guns. Right. But like, if it was, there's more guns than people in America. Right. So if it was just the presence of guns that made the difference, you know, like we had machine guns from the 30s up until 1999 when that started happening. So, you know, it's annoying, you know, because it's like, why can't people? Converse to that, I get kind of annoyed with the sort of Second Amendment absolutist people, because I feel like they're being a little naive too.
Yeah.
Like, I find it hard to believe. Yeah, okay, so say Beto gets his way and like all guns are gone. Like, that probably would prevent some of this. You know what I mean? There would be, like, I'm sure there would, like, if we were able to run like control group experiments, like alternate little timelines, I'm sure there would be some version of this where the fact that a gun was not readily available for whatever reason made the difference between that guy just, you know, starting a fight at school instead of getting an arsenal and killing a bunch of people. I mean, you have to be honest and admit that probably would prevent something, right?
Yeah, that's probably true.
But the problem is that people say it as if, when they say that, like, these events are completely preventable. I'm like,
Not necessarily. Yeah. Well, look, man. I mean, like, there's somewhere around
that's not going to solve.
Well, there's like 35 or 40,000 car accident deaths every year. But you could prevent that. You could do something, and you could make every car have a regulator on it where it goes 10 miles an hour. That's it. No more car deaths. That's it. We're done. But then the cost to society for that, I mean, there's always cost. I mean, it's.
I mean, we said all this with coronavirus. You know,
right?
If you look at only one factor in an equation, of course, because like the CDC only cares about deaths and transmission. The CDC is not in charge of the economy, so they're not in charge of the world supply chains or whatever. So from their perspective, all they care about is that one thing.
Yep. Right. So the flip side of the ban all gun argument is it's impossible. Like it's a non-starter only just because it's physically and it's just rationally impossible.
You're going to make it impossible for anybody to defend themselves against illegal gun violence.
Because like there's other stats too where there's like more than like, I don't know, it's like 1.2 million defensive uses of a gun every year, which doesn't mean like 1.2 million people stopped a mass murderer, but it's like 1.2 million times reported to the police somebody used something with their personal weapon to protect themselves or their property, and that's reported. So I mean, like, you know, understandably so. Like, you have a school shooting and 19 kids are dead, and it's freaking horrible. But like, there's millions of other examples every year where people use the same weapons to protect themselves. So again, it's not just like you said, it's not one data point. We're just like, well, that's it, fix it, that's it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. It's like it doesn't work that way. So it's I don't know. So I mean, I am more of a Second Amendment absolutist, but you know, it's just in principle. So it's just whatever. I mean, like even like stuff like background checks. I don't support that. I don't think it's not the government's job to look into me. Would it be wise, I think, for someone who wants to sell guns and be a responsible, moral person to know who they're selling a gun to? Sure. I wouldn't I'm not morally opposed to the action of a background check. You know what I mean? If you agree to it and you're like, I want to purchase this from you, you'd be like, well, I want to know who you are before I sell it to you. That's a fair bet to me. I don't see the problem in that. Start mandating stuff. I don't know, man. It's just the government has no. They don't have the moral authority, nor do they have the competency to do it correctly. And it happens to be, I think, wildly unconstitutional if you believe in that sort of thing. But that's just me being a...
Yeah, it gets into one of these, right, like just because something is a good idea does not predicate that it must be mandated.
Right.
Right. Like,
well, like driving a car. Back to that example. Like, a driver's license is a great idea in theory. You should have to be able to prove to somebody that you are competent in using this vehicle.
Yeah, it seems pretty reasonable to me.
But the way you would do that in like my perfect world is you want insurance for your car. Okay. Did you take driver's ed? Can you pass a test? Can you drive this thing like a normal human being? Or if you want to drive on this road or on a toll road, be like, well, we kind of want you to have insurance or a tag on your car that says you did this. I mean, having the government do it, I think, is stupid, and it's a money racket for them and whatever. But it's a very small, imposition on us to own a vehicle. It really is. It's not that big of a deal. Just like a background check really isn't that big of a deal because most people that own guns aren't getting a gun to do something nefarious with it.
Well, so it's an ends justify the means thing.
Well, again, I wouldn't argue it that way. I'm just saying it's an evil that's put upon that is tolerable.
Well, I mean, and I say that because all social contracts are essentially cost benefit, judgment calls.
But does that always ends justify the means?
Well, sometimes, like most of us, we accept the fact that, a driver's license is required to operate a motor vehicle because you're out there speeding 70 miles an hour down the road in close proximity to other people. You want to know that other people know what they're doing, and you want other people to know that you know what you're doing so that it's not Mad Max out there.
Yeah, there's an inherent danger.
So we accept
in
that social contract with other human beings. Most people don't have a problem with that because driver's licenses are not that hard to get.
Right.
People start complaining when all of a sudden the cops are like, well, you were going too fast, you were being unsafe. And you're like, oh, that's just a racket, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like, well, you weren't wearing your seatbelt. Or like, well, that only hurts me, but like.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Or you didn't pay for you didn't pay your license fee on time or your taxes on time. And now I'm going to impound your vehicle, you murderous villain, you. But so we're kind of all talking, we're talking about the same thing. But like, and then people are just like, well, driving a car is not even a natural right, or I mean, I would argue it's a natural right, but it's not a constitutional right. So therefore, that's a bad analogy because there's in the Constitution the rights to bear arms are by the people. So you don't have the federal government has no authority, which they really don't. In regulating that, but regardless, I don't know. I mean, again,
it's one of these things where,
as I'm saying this, I understand where people are just like, "Well, shut the fuck up." That doesn't really matter. I mean, that is a true point in my mind. But the federal government does everything they want to do anyway. So
it's an important principle to remember, though. I mean, we all exist in this nebulous world where there's principle over here, and then there's reality over here, right? And there's could be, would be, should be, and then there's is, right? And so we all have to make these compromises, So, but the idea of imagining like what would be my ideal scenario, right? That's not a worthless endeavor, right? Even if you come up with something that's impractical that wouldn't work, that people wouldn't agree to, that is kind of incompatible with natural human nature, or is the cat's out of the bag because of the technology we have, whatever. It's still good to imagine those things, right? And that's where all of these ideologies. I mean, Marxism imagines one utopia, right? Objectivism imagines a different one. And so they're all worthy questions to be asked,
Sure.
but we all come down to the idea of like, at what point does a thing that is good become mandatory? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Or vice versa, something's bad become illegal.
correct. So there's all, I mean, the libertarian philosophy is just like, well, if you're doing something that only hurts yourself, it's your own poor choice, then that's it's not a problem. But like where totalitarianism starts is it starts by appealing to people's idea of like, hey, this thing is bad for everybody else. What if we made it safe for you? Right.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Everybody should get a vaccine. It's like, okay, well, it's my personal choice, but like, no, but like that might hurt you. So what if we make it a rule for everybody to get a vaccine? I'm like, all right, well, that's different, right? Or it was like, okay, like, hey, look, with in the post Me Too world, it's like, consent is an important thing. If people make bad decisions, it's not good to take advantage of people. Somebody's drunk, somebody's too young, maybe they're mentally disabled, all kinds of things like that. So like, we need to be instructing our sons and our daughters about what that means, so that that's just a better world for everyone. And so somebody says, well, why don't we make consent mandatory?
The law.
You know what I mean? So like, you got people meeting up with their Tinder hookup, and they're like, "Hey, no, that's cool. Hey, you're pretty sexy. Just fill out the form, and here we go." My buddy's a notary. Hey, come on over here.
Like, we'll have to hop down to the bank because I get the notary signed. Yeah.
Yeah, they got like a notary area in a little Starbucks where everybody meets up, or at the bar, whatever.
Ooh, the bar. Yeah, the bar hookup notary. That's a great idea.
Big bouncer in the back. You got to sit there like almost getting a little picture like.
It's like a Vegas.
I solemnly swear that I have sound mind.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, you consent. You, here you go. Here's your chips. Go have fun. I'm like, okay. Yeah,
but I mean, okay, technically, if you did that, that would prevent X number of sexual assaults.
Well,
probably.
Theoretically.
It would prevent at least some. So does that mean that if we can save just one life?
Yeah, you're right. It would. It would prevent probably at least one sexual assault or one unwanted drunken hookup for sure.
It would also prevent a lot of happiness and enjoyment and fun. It'd be an intimate buzzkill. You know what I mean?
You could, man. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that is the whole point. I mean,
that's a goofy example, but it's the same.
Yeah, principle. But it's still, the point is accurate. I still think so. Right. So we're gonna. I mean, as a country, we're just gonna flounder around with this until, because like the guns aren't. I mean, in my opinion, it's not the main problem. The main problem is we have a societal strain where people are willing to go and take an instrument, a tool, a weapon, whatever the hell, a car, who cares, and murder people in mass,
right?
For whatever reason that is. And how you dig into that and change a culture, man. I mean, it didn't happen overnight, so fixing it isn't going to happen overnight. Even if you could accurately diagnose what the problem is, which.
And if people,
and that's not going to be one problem, you know what I mean? Like we're just talking about, it's not going to be.
It's
one,
like people have their pet causes,
right.
Their pet
fatherlessness, Dan.
Right. And it's like, why can't people just say, oh, like, well, this particular issue is very important to me, so I'm gonna work on this. Right. But I recognize that this is only part of the solution.
Sure.
And so you guys can argue about that, but like nobody can do that. A person who's a gun activist, they could say like, look, I know that I just don't like this thing. I don't think these things are dangerous. We should get these. Now, I'm not talking about the larger societal issues. We definitely have a problem with like mental health and like, prescription. Like there's an opioid epidemic. There's a lack of purpose in music. I'm not even talking about that, but I'm just talking about the gun part. Okay. Maybe we could do this little bit here and help the cause 5%. If people just say it like that, I feel like they'd get a lot more.
Yeah, you'd probably get more traction.
You get more traction because you wouldn't be trying to act like your solution is the solution. Yeah. Right. Kind of like with wearing a mask or a vaccine or anything like that. It's just like, it's all those things can chip away. Right. And if the mental health people, like it's like they're probably, because everything's all tribalized left and right.
Yep.
Like they can't just admit that like, okay, maybe getting rid of certain types of guns and certain types of, things like that, maybe that would prevent X number of tragedies. Now, that the legality of that constitutionally is a discussion for another topic. Sure. But like they can't just let them have that thing. They talk about whatever. You know what I mean? Like why can't everybody admit that like we're going to chip away like, okay, 10% of this can be this and then another 10% could be this. If everybody would just work together. But like people they only want their thing and they want to make sure that somebody else's solution is like considered stupid. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
it's so petty.
So like, and then I hear the argument, against gun control, and like you, I'm not like a gun nut. I do own a gun. I don't mind guns. I wouldn't mind having more, but I'm not putting lots of money and time into it.
Yeah, I'm just
But
too
like,
cheap.
sure, and then whatever. But like, where people are just like, well, you know what, my right to defend myself isn't up to you in the least. Like, okay, I really get that argument as well. Like, so like at least that I get. So like,
Yeah.
even if someone's like, I just want to do these like incremental, small little changes. I see where people are just like, fuck you. No, the answer is no. There's no wiggle room here. I'm not going to give any more. Not going to no more inches. But that's part and parcel of what you're saying, because like, so it's like an all or nothing thing. Usually, when people have those really compartmentalized arguments, there's like this is it. This needs to be gone. Like it is a reaction to the ban all guns argument, which is why your reaction is that way, because it's impossible. It's politically and not feasible. I mean, and it is impossible because there are so many freaking guns out there. There's just no way for the government to go get every single gun in this country.
Right.
0, 0, 0 chance. It's impossible.
How hard would it be to hide a gun?
Not that hard. People, I mean, they cross the border every day from Mexico and into the U.S. Man, I mean, guns get run all the time, dude.
Yeah. I mean, it's that whole boating accident joke,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, all my guns. Yeah, I lost it on the boating. Yeah. So right, there's no.
They don't have the resources. What are they going to do? They're going to. I mean, think about the amount of manpower it would take.
Right.
Well,
yeah, because like they're like, well, they did it in Australia. They had like mandatory buybacks. I was like, I 100% I guarantee you there are still guns in Australia. There's people that live in the fucking outback. Like they have to shoot kangaroos. Come on, dude. They're not going out there with just, billy clubs. I mean, there's armed people in Australia.
Yeah, the general totalitarianism of Australia is not one
that was a
that I
bad
would have.
example. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Not one I would have predicted. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, okay. Isn't that crazy? Yeah,
strange. You got a continent that's the size of America, but with like 1 bazillionth the population. It's mostly empty space except for this side and this side.
Yeah, the nice coasts.
Yeah, and then that's the country that like they're all cool with like government control of everything. It's strange. You'd expect that out of like some sort of like European landlocked nation that's very urbanized or something. You know what I mean? Or
right.
Strange.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and that we've had this conversation too. Like the way United States is like just demographically so much different than every other country on the planet. Like,
right. You
like,
can't
it's
compare.
just-
You can't compare the United States to like the UK. You have to compare United States to Europe.
right. I mean, it's just like
Same
yeah,
size.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even that. You compare what Texas to Europe. Good Lord. Like, I mean, like California to Europe, like in terms of, well, no, I guess not all of Europe, population wise. Yeah, it'd have to be all of Europe. You're right. I was thinking the UK. But like, yeah, exactly. But like, then just like the spans, the type of people, the types of areas, the type of demographics, the sheer amount of people. I mean, it's insane. It's not, there's just no monolith thing that,
I mean,
through.
Is there a country in the world that's more like ethnically and demographically more diverse than America? I mean, you know what I mean? I mean,
maybe India, like, because India's got a lot of different regions and a lot of, but still,
that's a good point. Yeah,
and also India, it just has a god awful amount of people, like,
1.2 billion people.
yeah, for sure, more people than the U.S. But even then, like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. If there's only a couple that are on par with it, everything else is pretty homogenous, to one extent or the other, for sure. I mean, you like, because China's certainly not. China's not diverse at all. Just has a huge population.
Yeah.
I guess Russia could be former Soviet, but even then, they're also fairly
fairly Anglo-European
in that vibe. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but the point being that like it's part of the reason why people like us are against general federalized control, because the larger you get and the more diverse you get. I mean, it's like who respects the European Union? It's like trying to get England and France and Germany and Italy and all those people to talk together. I mean, that'd be a nightmare. But I mean, America's more. We got just as much diversity.
Yeah,
here.
Between the states, absolutely. Yeah. And it's nightmarish. Like it doesn't work on so many levels.
And then when somebody dares to be like, you know what, why don't we just table this issue and send it out to the individual states, and everybody loses their damn minds.
Yeah, right. or God forbid, you mentioned maybe, yeah, like decentralized control way to the point where, maybe this region can govern itself just a little bit better than having like Vermont and Washington State try to like govern West Virginia for some reason. Like, okay, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
But we've been doing it for 200 plus years, so it's going to take a lot to pull that thread apart.
It's going to take a lot to drag me away from here.
Yes, definitely going to take a lot. We'll go down to Africa, see what's going on.
Yeah, they got it figured out down there.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, Africa's very there you go. United States is Africa. Africa's very there's no diversity in Africa at all. It's all one giant. I love talking to people about Africa. They're like, yeah. I was like, like Northern Africa is completely not what you think Africa, and like people don't even realize that. Like there's like Egypt and stuff and all this, like that whole like Sudan. Well, Sudan's its own thing, but
yeah,
Africa's crazy. But
I mean, the Sahara Desert is basically the size of America.
Yes, but like like whatever, dude. It's just people don't have a good understanding of that kind of stuff, and which I don't understand why they would. People don't have a good understanding in the United States how diverse the United States is, and we all live here. So
even the simple idea of like, it's amazing how many people don't understand the idea of when you live out in the boonies. Like, it's like, why does it? Like, no, I don't. It's not that I don't want the cops to defend me. But if somebody's on my property and I live out, if I'm Yellowstone or whatever, like it's going to take them 15 minutes to get here.
Oh, easy. Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, think about it. Like even like a situation in the school, like that, to get enough cops in there to make a force of something, if there's like more than one person. I mean, you can't just snap your fingers even in a small town and get a bunch of people over there. Generally, it takes a good 10 or 15 minutes, even anywhere. You know what I mean? Not like, or like in Durham or something. Like what? Are there 20 something cops floating around every school? Could they get there in like 10 minutes?
Maybe. You could get a decent amount of cops at any school in Durham in 10 minutes. I mean,
10 minutes. All right, fair enough. All right.
Just at least where there's always one or two patrol cars within a couple of mile radius of here. And I live like right across from the street from a school. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, maybe bad example.
But I imagine, I imagine that most small towns are kind of like the town from the first Rambo, where you got like the sheriff and like some of these guys that like maybe they've seen some action, maybe they haven't, but they're not really prepared for like.
Yeah, I get that, but they also are. They're trained for it, right?
That's
I mean, they're trained in using guns and they're trained to shoot people if they have to. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Just the fact that they could get their hands on SWAT material means they at least got it around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but
go ahead.
I don't know, man. Because like we said, like an off-duty guy ran in there. Like parents were running in there. It doesn't take a freaking, you don't have to be a trained assassin to be able to do this kind of job when there's like kids getting shot in a school, right? You go in there. Guns blazing and hopefully find the asshole. So again, I'm not a cop. I'm not saying it's something. I mean, if it were my kids, I think I'd be in there, but
it's kind of like, it's like, there's the mentality that like taking ownership and responsibility for a problem, right? People think that like, well, if we take steps to militarize our schools, what message are we sending? And they just like, they don't like the fact that the situation has deteriorated to that point. Like, this is the world we live in now. This is what we have to do. And it's like, okay, well, I agree that that's depressing in one way, but it also is reality. So this is what we got. I'm sorry that there's metal detectors at the airport, but you and I didn't make that happen. A bunch of crazy people from Saudi Arabia made that happen 20 years ago. So there's human beings have always been tempted towards evil, right? That's just in us. So we've just now with new we just come up with new ways to be evil to one another,
Yes.
So we can either choose to ignore that or we can choose to take steps to counteract it, right? So this is what somebody's got to step up and he's like, all right, well, yeah, okay, this sucks that this is the reality now. We have to protect our children. So that's going to take many forms, right? We need to protect the schools better, come up with better doors. I mean, all kinds of stuff like that, but also like all the other stuff too, like keeping an eye on people and,
Yep.
Maybe it does mean we should do an audit of the background check algorithm. Like whatever that is doing clearly didn't work. Somebody slipped through the cracks. But then when somebody does slip through the cracks, at least they don't get past the front door.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like literally, not even figuratively, literally.
Right.
Keep the damn door locked.
Well, it's just like with the coronavirus. I mean, people would say like, well, it's just a shame that we have to do all this stuff, because of somebody else. I'm like, okay, but this is the reality we live in. Right. I'm sorry that you get offended if people point out that fat people get it more often. But like, we can all take little bitty steps. Okay. Maybe be a little bit healthier, protect your grandma. Like,
right.
People people don't like to talk about a solution that has many components because that won't fit on a bumper sticker.
I agree. Yeah. Well, that and like, a multi-phased solution. I don't know, man. I mean, a lot of times it gives you wiggle room to go, all right, it's trying things. And he goes like, well, that didn't really work. That didn't really work. This worked a little bit. This didn't work. This didn't work at all. This worked a lot, like, so that requires it requires a bigger analysis, I guess. It's just, it's way harder to do. I mean, it really is. Like the silver bullet theory is just so good. You just want that one thing. That's what everybody wants. They want the easy answer. And there's rarely an easy answer. Yeah, like I remember the
even
the
a
COVID
silver
stuff.
bullet. I mean, the silver bullets aren't the only thing that kill vampires.
Werewolves?
Oh, is it werewolves?
Yes.
Oh, okay. My bad. I was sitting there. I was thinking. I was like, "Can't you also kill a vampire with a stake?"
You can. Now, there's more than one way to kill a vampire. Yes, you got sunlight. You got a stake.
Right. The silver bullets are for werewolves. Right. Okay.
They're
not swearwolves.
Yeah. I don't know if the garlic is a. Well, we'll kill a.
No, it just makes them go like, right? Or
is that what they do? Yeah. It's like a mummy and a cat, like a pharaoh. I don't know. Yeah. But okay, yeah, right. Silver bullet. Yeah, but there's got to be another way to kill a werewolf. Come on, that can't be right. But I don't know. We'll circle back on that one. That's a different topic. Yeah. All right, I forget what we were talking about, but we were all saying the same stuff. So
yeah,
shitty, man. It's just a weird week. I thought we were kind of talking about this a couple weeks ago. Oh no, I guess it's because of the Buffalo shooter. But I felt like we were talking about a bunch of this stuff just a little while ago too. But I don't know. I mean, I know we talked about the U.S. demographic and the shooting stuff. It's just weird. Also, this is another fact. These are facts. They may not be facts. So how everyone's like, yeah, the United States has the highest incidence of like these kind of mass violent shooting events. And then I hear people go, that's not true, right? I go, really? Because I hear that a lot. So it's frustrating because I don't have a good data point on that to point to.
Yeah, mass shooting is a very nebulously defined
term. Yeah, I agree. So I don't know, but like the way like violence in death per capita, the United States is actually pretty low on the list, like compared to Western countries. But I don't know, which is it's two different conversations really. But I don't know, not that. It doesn't help to be like, well, actually, it's very rare for kids to get shot and killed at school. Like, yeah, that's the conversation you want to have. But it comes up.
But that's how I had to talk to my kids about it. I was like, oh
yeah, that's what I told my daughter. Yeah.
I was talking to Levi. I was like, remember in Superman when he saves the plane, and then he's like, I hope this doesn't put you off flying. Statistically, it's still the safest way to travel. I was like, that's what it is going to school. I mean, there's lots of schools. So,
Yeah, I know. It's funny how little kids think, because like my daughter was talking about it and she's like, my friend, I forget his name, he just moved and he moved to Texas. So we're all really worried about him. I was like, I think he's okay, honey. I was like, it's all right. He's not in that school. Texas is a giant state. There's millions and millions of people, millions of schools. Your friend is fine. But you good. I'm glad you're concerned about your buddy.
Yeah, I mean, some of that's cute, but some of it is also a little bit scary to think that, like, what sort of complexes are we giving people?
Yeah, fair enough. But then
like some of the kids, I still see kids walking around outside wearing masks. Like, what have they heard from their parents that makes the, what I mean? Like,
That's crazy to me.
They're
But
gonna get like they're gonna need to suddenly develop OCD when they're 18, 19, 20 or something. Or
I saw a kid wearing a mask with parents the other day at a grocery store. The parents weren't wearing a mask. The kid was wearing one. I don't know. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he had the cough. Maybe he was just being polite or something. But I was
he
just
had the
like, it was like
consumption.
yeah, like it's just a teenager walking around with a mask with I'm presuming it was his parents. And I was just like, what is going on here? But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, psychology is a tricky thing
It
because
is.
what's the other extreme? It's like Sparta, where it was all strength, no weakness, no nuance. And it's like, well, that's a little bit fucked up, you know,
Yeah.
but it's also it did have results because nobody messed with Sparta.
Yeah. There was definite results. And but yeah, the psychological scarring was on the opposite polar end. So, but yeah, for sure. Yeah. Hardened people
Yeah.
all day. Yeah. I mean,
That's the sidebar. Like, it's one of the very interesting parts about that movie 300
yeah.
is that like I think I want to think that the movie's actually really smart about this, and it's like kind of like Starship Troopers, where it's like kind of a satire, but you don't really realize it. You think like the movie acts like the Spartans are like the heroes, and they are right because they're fighting against the bad guys, but like it's so jingoistic. It dares you to like point out like the fact that like, okay, well, the fact that they were crappy to that guy with a disability is the reason they're all dead because they turned him into a traitor. If they had just been like, if Leonidas was a little bit more polite to that guy, he wouldn't have gone and made friends with the Persians.
It's true.
Right. So it's kind of points out that there's a flaw in that all or nothing mindset.
I wonder if that was intentional, Dan. Good takeaway.
Frank Miller's a pretty smart person, but he's definitely an anti-right winger. And
What else
300
has he
is
done?
nothing.
If
I
he
mean,
does
it was
something up there.
well, I don't know. Is he anti-right? I mean, he did a lot of like the Dark Knight Returns, a lot of like, where the dark version of Batman came from.
Okay.
And I think From Hell, that the thing about Jack the Ripper, and a bunch of other graphic novels that turned into movies, and Sin City was another one.
Oh, okay.
That's a
Oh,
great
well,
movie. I love that.
Sin City's cute, but I mean, well, that makes sense, especially on the visual aspect of it. That's kind of the same.
But it's a
vibe.
weird, like it's a stylized, like it's hard to tell if it's like an endorsement of this sort of hard-nosed right-wing philosophy or if all of it is just a big criticism of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
don't
I
know.
got you. No, I was just trying. I didn't know what else he had done or something. Hoo-yah. Well, Dan, I guess we didn't solve the.
The gang solves the gun safety. Oh, that's another funny thing. Not funny, like haha funny, but strange funny.
Yes.
How notice the prevalence of they use the phrase gun safety instead of gun control. Like we need to pass comprehensive and common sense gun safety regulate. Like you can just see that it's the ship of Theseus thing, where
Yeah,
like everywhere it says gun control, gradually they all get replaced with gun safety. Because gun control is like kind of poisoned, because they don't like the word control, right? But safety, who doesn't like safety?
Yeah, everybody loves safety. God, that's the shit I despise about just the social manipulation of language. Ugh, it burns me up.
I saw this thing the other day. Somebody posted that was about the formula shortage. And I actually agreed with a lot of what it was saying because it was like, here's why the formula shortage is important. Because apparently there's these like old school douchey guys who are like, why don't people just breastfeed? Like trying to mansplain to everybody. And this because they don't know what they're talking about. But
use them.
yeah. So this post was explaining this, like, actually, that's not practical for a lot of people. Some people have this kind of like, there's medical things. Some kids have allergies. There's a lot of real reasons why the technological invention of formula was a great thing for humanity.
Sure.
And so I agreed with it, a lot of what they were saying, but they wouldn't say mothers. They would say birth parents. About the fifth or fourth time, it's like certain birth parents you can't just take a break at your job to go, to go breastfeed your baby, or you have to, there's pumping and all this kind of stuff. You got to do like legit. I mean, you have kids, you know how it goes. But they just kept saying birth parents, and I'm like, you're really losing me with this birth parent thing because they refused to say mother because that implied that they were the ones who could have kids. It was like,
at least they said parent, like not just birthing person. Like
it might have been birthing person or nursing persons. It was something. I'm gonna have to find it and look it up. But it was. I'm pretty sure it was something like that. It was so cringy.
That is very cringy. Yeah, see, that's funny, man, because that's another one of those. Obviously, a less serious topic in terms of like, should you breastfeed versus not breastfeed? But like, there's a ton of things that go into that, and there's a ton of. Again, it's not just like, if you love your kid, you do it. But like, like, or if you love your kid, you stay home. Like, okay, like that's the ideal. I get that. Like, if you're a mom, you stay home, you breastfeed, or you pump, or you do whatever you can. But like, that's not feasible necessarily in reality. And there's a lot of reasons why that's not feasible in reality.
Yeah,
but like, just a blanket statement and just
yeah,
like,
it's so dumb. It's the equivalent of like, if God wanted us to fly, he'd have given us wings. It's like, well, okay. Yeah, like, so what are you gonna? You don't want to use antibiotics now? It's like, if I'm supposed to, like, that's something. Life expectancy used to be 35.
Exactly. Yeah, a toothache would freaking kill you. So you get an infection, you die. But I don't know. It's just like, there was I was not shocked, I guess, but like, I saw a lot of that stuff, which is like, oh, it's time to breastfeed or get a wet nurse. Like, who the hell has a wet nurse around, like, at their fingertips? Like,
yeah, what are you, like Louis the 15th?
Like, I that was a very prominent like phenomenon, 300 years ago, like prior to, like,
yeah,
formula.
I feel like that's a job that we're okay being replaced by technology.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's not. I mean, it's definitely less natural, but it's not any less impersonal. You're like, okay, go nurse on this other lady's teat, or just have formula. Like, it's
yeah. Well, and then there's the wrench in that, because not all formula is the same.
Yeah, that's true. And
somebody was talking the other day about like American formula, because it's in bed with like big pharma, absolutely. And all. There's all this like corn syrup and stuff in there, and like, like apparently European formula is like way more natural and
but also not legal. You can't buy it, and they had to get like special permission to let it in here. So I think
so big formula.
Yeah, big formula.
They got their hands in the pockets of Washington. That's
they do, man. Yeah, dude. Biden was elected by big formula. We all know it. Just nobody wants to say it.
He should wear a big Enfamil patch on the front of his jacket. We know where that money's coming from.
Disgusting. Yeah, the formula lobby. Has, just the influence they have is just tragic.
Yeah,
them in the NRA.
Oh, those bastards.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that. But
yeah.
All right. Well, it's been almost an hour.
All right.
Good. Fun jam.
Yep.
Where's the outro? There's the outro. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
All right. We saw
lifelong membership to the NRA. That's what your son has.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
It's been officially rescinded.